here at Chapman learn about marketing, branding, differentiation, competitive strategy, and then they go and take the same jobs as everybody else. What's up with that? And I was thinking about this in context of, oh, by the way, this is my book. And don't wait for the movie because Brad Pitt and Carrot Top are fighting over my role. What did we learn in business schools? Well, I remember back during the dot-com boom that all the students, these are brilliant, bright students who can really go and do anything. And they come out and they say, I want to go to Silicon Valley and become an entrepreneur, which means make as much money as I make anywhere else and become a billionaire in 18 months. Remember the dot-com boom, right? All the kids with the foosball tables becoming billionaires. Well, they went out and they did that. That didn't work so well, as many of them found. And then a few years later, everybody wanted to go into hedge funds and private equity. Well, gosh, we know what happened to that, right? So I started to call that the fad cycle. And so why is it that we learn about competitive differentiation, we learn about branding, marketing, positioning, all these things, and yet we go out and we get the same jobs as everybody else? So I thought, maybe it's an opportunity to apply the insights of business, in particular my field, the insights of innovation and entrepreneurship to how we live our lives and to how we move forward, not only individually, but as the Chancellor said, as families, as communities, and as a global community. So I was going to do a quick tutorial about innovation management. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go to a couple specific slides and then tell some stories. So first of all, there's something we call the success trap. Everyone knows about Government Motors, and you probably recognize these other companies as well. These companies are on this slide for two reasons. Number one, every one of these companies has had a brush with death. Some of them are dead. Imagine 2 years ago Lehman Brothers being out of business today. Some of them are still around in shadows of their former selves. What a great idea. Take two lousy companies, stick them together, and all of a sudden you'll have an even bigger lousy company. And some of them have recovered quite well, like IBM. Most people don't know that in 1993, Lou Gerstner was hired to break up the company and sell off the parts. He was from RJR Nabisco. He was from the consumer packaged goods industry. Why did he take the job? Well, literally because no one else would take the job. Literally. No one from the computers or electronic space would take the job of CEO of IBM because it was going to heck in a handbasket. And he came in and he said, you know what, it's not going to be broken up on my watch. And he fixed the company. So what I illustrate with this is, when you think you're doing well, when you think things are right, that's the time to be worried. That's the time to start thinking, what can I do better? Good is the enemy of great. So what I've done is I've taken a number of the insights of innovation management. Most of these are done in context of business, obviously, some behavioral economics and some other fields. But I've said, can this tell us about how we live? And I've got 7 points. This is neither mutually exclusive nor collectively exhaustive. So it is completely unrigorous, and I'm just going to hopefully entertain you a little bit. But I would like you to think about these things because I think they do have an impact on the way that we think about our lives. First of all, always keep the mission in mind. This individual here is William Perry, Secretary of Defense under Bill Clinton. One of the greatest Secretaries of Defense since World War II. I think Gates is giving him a run for his money, but nonetheless a fabulous leader. And Secretary Gates spoke for one of my kin events at Cisco in San Jose. And he's a very unassuming guy, very soft-spoken, but inspirational. His slides were horrible. Some of the worst slides I've ever seen in my life. They were Times New Roman font with bullet points. Just atrocious, but the content was amazing. And the deliverer of the message was inspiring. So he was talking about his first tour of duty in the Pentagon back under the Carter administration. In the mid-70s, I know none of you are old enough to remember this, but in the mid-70s we had a big problem in Europe. And that was the Soviet Union had an overwhelming conventional force advantage. There was no way for the United States and NATO to put enough boots on the ground or enough tanks in the field to overcome a Soviet invasion of Western Europe. It literally was this bad. If the Soviets had decided to roll their tanks across Western Europe, we had one choice. Do we drop a nuclear bomb or do we not? They decided that maybe that wasn't a great option, so they needed something else. Perry and his team went to the Defense Advanced Research Program Agency, DARPA, and said, hey, what do you got? This is the advanced, far-out technology stuff, people wasting money on lots of interesting things and become things like the internet. They said, what's going on here that's really powerful that can help us use what America's got, which is technology? That's what will help us overcome this challenge. And they chose 3 things. They chose smart weapons, smart sensors, and stealth. And we all know what happened with some of those things. And he said to his team, get it done in 4 years. Now, I got to tell you, getting anything done in 4 years at the Pentagon is a Herculean task. But he knew it had to be done within 4 years because there's a good likelihood that he'd be out on his can by that time, right? Now, as he's telling this story, I realized that what he did and his team did at that point in time had a material impact. It wasn't the only factor, but it had a material impact on the outcome of the Cold War. It had a material impact on bringing down the Soviet Empire. And he had a lousy slide, Times New Roman black and white font, 40 words on one slide. And I stopped him. I said, Secretary Perry, I hate to interrupt you, please, but I have my 40 executives, high-powered executives from big corporations who lead innovation and companies. You all recognize all of them. IBM was one of them. And I said, I hate to interrupt you, but I want to point something out. In 40 words on one slide, you've articulated the challenge, you've articulated the means, and the parameters for operating. Within 40 words, you've just articulated the basic strategy that helped bring down the Soviet Empire. And I looked at all the executives and I said, how many of your CEOs could articulate all of that about your company in 40 words? And they all kind of slumped down in their chairs and said, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, right? But this is the kind of thing we need to do in order to be clear about what it is we're looking for, because as I'll show you in a moment, human beings only see the things for which we're looking. This is an evolutionary adaptation. So another quick message from the military. A lot of people think the military isn't particularly innovative, but I got to tell you, there are things that the military can do that absolutely nobody can. They do a lot of things smarter than companies and organizations. What happens in your companies or organizations when somebody makes a mistake, when something doesn't go as planned? What's the first thing people do? Pardon? No, that's the second thing. Blame others. Tony said blame others. That's the second reaction. What's the first reaction? Freak out. Pardon? Get fired? No, that's third or fourth. Freak out. Freak out. Well, maybe actually that's a half. That maybe is covered up, right? Maybe no one notices, right? If nobody notices, then maybe the mistake didn't happen. It's the Buddhist approach, right? Nobody sees it, it didn't happen, right? Well, if people see it, then you start pointing fingers, and then people get fired and all that, right? Well, for the most part, not the military. When you are in a life and death situation, if you go out and pursue what they call a mission, everybody has a mission, from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs all the way down to the new private. They have a mission. You go out and you try and prosecute your mission. It goes well, you talk about it. It goes badly, something blows up. Sometimes people die by accident. You come back and you talk about it. It's called an after-action review. That's what we need to do in our businesses and our lives. One of the things they have in the military